Have you ever wondered what it would be like to experience the thrill of exploring old ruins around the world without having to bear the same surname as an explorer with a penchant for defiling them? Don't worry, Uncharted Drake's Fortune has you covered. Created by Naughty Dog and released for the Sony PlayStation 3 in 2007, it was later packaged into the Nathan Drake collection for the Sony PlayStation 4 in 2015. The beginning of a series, Drake's Fortune promises to provide an unforgettable adventure, and serves as a good look at how Naughty Dog has evolved as a developer within the action-adventure sphere of gaming, from here to The Last of Us. For the purposes of this review, I played the game on normal difficulty on the PS4.
Nate, this better not be another wild goose chase.
Uncharted Drake's Fortune follows the story of Nathan Drake, a self-proclaimed treasure hunter of sorts who is looking for an ancestral treasure whose coordinates are inscribed upon a family heirloom. Joining him are Elena Fisher, a reporter looking for the next big scoop, and Victor Sullivan, Nathan's friend and mentor who also happens to have a volatile relationship with debt collectors. At first the characters grated on me as they seemed to be stereotypical cliches. Within the first few chapters of the game, I started to question whether this game was really for me, as there weren't really any defining characteristics to make the characters unique or interesting. Nathan was a typical bumbling protagonist, Elena was that annoying character who was completely defined by her unhealthy obsession for the well-being of a video camera, and Sullivan was a typical old washed-up debt runner who needed financing to pay off his loan sharks. None of these characters were interesting to me in the beginning, but as I played more, slowly like peeling off the layers of an onion, they organically began to develop as the narrative played out. The game opens on a boat off the coast of Panama as Nathan and Elena find a coffin said to contain the remains of Nate's distant ancestor. When they fish up the coffin, they find that it contains the diary of the late Sir Francis Drake, and a whole lot of trouble as modern pirates appear on the horizon to begin one of the game's many gunslinging sections. After narrowly escaping death, Nate and Elena and their savior Sullivan escape by plane to a small island village where Sullivan makes the executive decision to leave Elena behind as deadweight. What a mistake. What follows is a trip to the Amazon rainforest in search of the missing El Dorado treasure, and a discovery which leads the characters to reunite for an adventure on a remote island where the true nature of the treasure is revealed. Primarily this game is split into two game modes, exploration and combat. Whilst the exploration was interesting to me, the combat sections sometimes got a little tiresome, especially in the early parts of the game. It puts to mind the lethargy I felt in playing the same sections in The Last of Us, though Uncharted Drake's Fortune well precedes that one. Nathan can seek cover against walls or behind crates, then shoot from behind them at human enemies. Unlike The Last of Us, however, there is no need to craft or use a first aid kit when you become injured, as Nate seems to be able to regenerate his health and shrug off a hail of bullets as quickly as a very popular X-Man can. The only indication of Nate's state of health is the fading of colours as he takes hits. It's reminiscent of the sensation one has when they're about to faint, which I suppose is fitting considering the circumstances. Though when you die, you will be greeted by a chorus of chastising cicada chittering. It never fails to make me laugh. There is no upgrading of weapons either, rather Nate must be resourceful and use what's available to him from his enemies or found lying around the environment. Whilst this initially filled me with anxiety because I thought that I might run out of ammunition, this never happened. The game felt balanced enough that I always ran with enough firepower to see me through every battle, and if not, then don't even think about relying on your fists, as it's a surefire way to a quick death. Hand-to-hand combat is so awkward that you may as well be swinging around raw chicken fillets. Battles are usually heralded by the sight of multiple hiding places which heavily telegraph the upcoming fight. It was rare that I ran into a battle unawares, though that did happen on a few occasions. Nate has access to a varying number of weapons and hand grenades, but is limited to carrying only one small and one large firearm, in addition to a handful of grenades. However you choose to take out the enemies is up to you, and there are trophies tied to killing a certain number of enemies with the different weapon types, so experimentation is encouraged. The enemy AI isn't too bad either. Leave them alone for too long and some of them will try to flank you, especially in the later parts of the game, so it's not always a good idea to hunker down in the same position. During battle, I appreciated how Nate would react when a grenade was thrown near him, visibly flinching as he exclaimed, "Oh boy." Don't be scared to lob a grenade back at enemies though. The game never told me how to throw a grenade, but I accidentally figured it out by pressing the L1 button. When a battle is finished, you can always tell, as the music will go from a flurry to a calmer atmospheric symphony absent of the rambunctious yelling of uncouth men who probably have never bathed themselves in their lives. In addition to exploration and gun toting, there are a few segments dedicated to vehicle navigation. One places you in a jeep outrunning hoodlums. Whilst I could appreciate the added dimension to the game from this mechanic, I did have a slight problem with the grenade launcher, which didn't give any feedback via either rumble in the controller or a distinguished sound when fired. This sometimes led me to a premature death because I wasn't sure if I was actually firing a grenade at all. Even more tedious were the jet ski sections. Yes, I understand that Nate and Elena are not Pacific salmon, so cannot swim up raging rapids, but maybe that would have controlled better? When piloting a jet ski, I sometimes felt like I was on the moon back in Mass Effect, in the Mako, cheering for the vehicle to make it up that next small mountain, like it was my great-grandmother's hand-me-down car desperately trying to ascend a slightly inclined driveway. Combined with the fact that you were being assaulted not only by gunshot, but also stray oil cans that are being cast into the torrent, there may have been a few deaths. If vehicles are used in future titles, I hope that these kinks have been ironed out, as they are not the type that would be welcomed in the bedroom at all. While exploring, Nate will often be challenged with free climbing, parkour, and puzzles, so he must always be on his toes. Sometimes it's not evidently clear where you can climb. For instance, in Horizon Zero Dawn, it was always clearly marked which surfaces could be scaled because of highlighting used to denote ledges within the environment. Sometimes the ledges in Uncharted are blended with the rest of the environment, and it makes it a little difficult to see where it's safe to jump to, leading to an inevitable death. I also felt that the controls were a little iffy on vines sometimes, not to mention that the camera sometimes would swing when I was trying to get a good angle on a sharp drop-off, and rather than just casually dropping down to grab hold of a cliff face, Nate would stumble over the precipice and into the abyss as though he'd just had too many Jack Daniels. Whilst the first couple of times he did this I thought it was funny, it did become a little old. Though Nate shows us once and for all that white men can't jump, when he flails about for a non-existent ledge. Let's hope that he doesn't have a dream of a career in basketball. Generally, if you take too long to figure out where you should go, sometimes the game will give you a hint by allowing you to press up on the D-pad when prompted. I did appreciate this mechanic. Additionally, when a puzzle must be solved, you can press the touchpad when prompted to view Drake's diary that will give a visual clue as to how to solve the puzzle. Sometimes these clues are a little abstract, and maybe I was dumb, but I did have to look up the solution to one of the puzzles. They are usually fair, though, and the solutions are within reasonable logic. I think for that one puzzle I looked up, I was just stumbling around tired. The absence of caffeine in my system brings on the cotton wool brain, unfortunately. As an additional objective to Nate's main task, he can also collect a number of unique treasures as he travels across the various environments. These are all donated by a flashing light on the ground, so you really need to keep your eyes peeled as they can be easy to miss. I think in my run through the game I found around 30 of the 60 treasures. If you check them in the options menu, they are all individually rendered and modelled, which I thought was a nice touch, and can be rotated to view each exquisite angle. Antique Roadshow, here we come. The game did an excellent job of capturing the essence of an uninhabited ruined paradise, with lush jungles cast strongly against the greys and browns of old architecture encroaching on the natural environment. The character models were all great and detailed, and I appreciated that Nate didn't run around looking like he was in his evening best, press pants and all. The gritty look of his outfit with its dirt and sweat stains gave me a good impression of the amount of effort he was exerting in the subtropical climate. The game environments were well lit for the most part, so it was generally easy to navigate the terrain without getting lost. There were also a few times where I had to pause to take in the beautiful views. The natural environment is perfectly captured and I appreciated this a lot. The music of the game was composed by Greg Edmondson, this being his current only foray into the territory of video games. I think he did an excellent job blending ethnic instruments with strong percussion beats and wind instruments. The music is orchestrated well and perfectly fits the environments in an almost ambient way. The only time the music really takes over is within areas where there is battle. Otherwise, it's soft and ambient and does its job of perfectly allowing me to immerse myself with the environment. The voice acting was great and not cheesy like early 90s PlayStation titles, and for that I was grateful as I wasn't sure what to expect coming into the game.
Thanks.
Alright, okay. Let's head up to the monastery and see what's going on.
I felt like a change of pace from the typical RPG that I tend to cover on this channel, and as I had previously tackled a Naughty Dog title, I thought looking at their roots in the genre would be a nice distraction. Whilst I didn't know what to expect, I was pleasantly surprised by the adventure that I found myself on. after the first few hours of the game had passed. The combat is balanced against exploration and puzzle solving in a nice way that didn't feel cumbersome, and the addition of being able to find treasures means that those are left behind incentivize me to play through the game again in the future. Ultimately, if you're a fan of the action-adventure genre, you'd be remiss not to pick this game up. As Sir Francis Drake once said, "There must be a beginning of any great matter, but the continuing unto the end until it be thoroughly finished yields the true glory." By the way, have you ever played a game that had a shaky start and you felt like it wasn't really for you, but as you played it more you got into the game's rhythm and decided that it wasn't that bad a game after all? Let me know in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.